Guys, it is Mike from Baltimore Rides here. Just unplugging my charging cord. Saturday morning, September 22nd. No, I'm sorry, today's Friday. Friday morning, September 22nd. I've lost all my days. They all just blur together after a while, guys. But I'm doing a morning video because I was thinking about this morning while I was getting ready for work. And, you know, a lot of times at night, I talk about recap. And I talk about how I did and what I did. But I had a great conversation yesterday and with somebody, and I'm going to give you guys kind of my morning process. So taking into account everything that I know from last night, everything I know from how I've been doing this week, you know, my day starts around a simple process. It starts around, you know, where do I want to start my ride based on what day of the week is it? And once I figure out that kind of starting point per se, then I think to myself, okay, what route do I have to take between that starting point and my home where I might be able to make up a little bit of extra residual money? You know, and so in the case of when I worked at BWI, I would drive down 83, I would go into the city, I would turn on my app, you know, the Uber app in the Harbor District, you know, kind of like right around Harbor East where the Four Seasons is. And chances are, as I started to drive towards BWI from Baltimore, I would get a ride to BWI because I set my destination for BWI. Well, now that I'm driving in DC, and I usually set my destination for like northeast or northwest district, like Georgetown or U Street, kind of somewhere up at the top end of the city. I have been changing my route. Instead of driving down 95 or 295 and just hustling to get to the city, I now take 29 South to Georgia Ave. And the reason why I do that is 29 becomes Colesville Road, which is kind of like, you know, businesses, traffic lights, people on foot, you know, and that's an opportunity for customers. So the conversation I had yesterday was somebody asked me kind of where I want to drive in the morning, where should I go? Now, you all know that I am not a morning driver. I've never once driven a morning shift. Never. So I had to put on my thinking cap and I had to play the what if game in my head. And, you know, my thoughts they revolved around one simple fact: population centers. What large groups of people are going to be moving around in the morning? So I know from my tour of duty at the airport that travelers move around on Fridays. A lot of them are here in town conferencing or meetings, and they're flying out on a Friday. So those folks will be leaving the Maryland, DC area on Friday to go home to wherever they live. A lot of folks that have been out of town will be flying back to Maryland, DC because they're coming home for their long weekend. So the airports and the hotels kind of lumped into one category. Travelers is one large group of people. But the other large group of people that we don't really talk about too much is college students in the morning. Now, I've gotten a lot of afternoon college student rides, you know, where I guess class has gotten out and they're going home to the dorms or where they live. But I would assume it's the safe assumption that in the morning time, a lot of these same people that are not driving or walking are using Uber to get to their campus early. So that's what I told this person. I said, you know what? My best guesstimate would be hang out where the college dorms are and the college university campuses are, or hang out where the hotels are. And I think if you pick those two target-rich environments, you'll probably have a much steadier source of rides than if you just go downtown. You know, because honestly, most of the people that are downtown, once they get to their job, they're stuck there. You know, they're stuck at their job. They're not going to need another ride until probably 4 o'clock. So, you know, this is where you have to say, okay, I don't want to just take somebody to work and then not have another ride again until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I want business steady in the morning. You know, so where can I go that I'll be steady? So, you know, colleges are a good place. I think colleges are a really good place. So that's kind of my thought around that. You know, for me, obviously you guys hear my thought process a lot more fluidly. I talk about kind of where I'm going and what I'm doing quite a bit. You know, but that's kind of my take on it, is that if your plan has to start with, where do I want to start my day? How do I get there? And how do I maybe make a couple bucks on the way? What route can I take that doesn't take me down a highway? Highways are deserts for us, guys. They're deserts, or they're like sand traps if you ever played golf. You know, I've never played golf, but I worked at a golf course once. You know, there are places where you're driving 60 miles an hour. If you get a ping from your app, chances are it screws your day up anyway, because then you got to go up to the next exit and make a U-turn. And a normal trip becomes a 10-minute ridiculous round trip to get to a person. So you don't really want to get a ride request when you're on the highway doing 65 miles an hour anyway. But then on top of that, there's nobody walking around, and you need pedestrians, you need people on foot in order to get a ride. So, you know, that's the key piece of business I can give you guys, is that, you know, think about what path you take. Every mile you're driving your car has to be somewhat profitable. And doesn't mean it always is, but that's the attempt. The attempt is to make your trips profitable. So I know if I take 29, which is Colesville Road, and then that becomes Georgia Ave, and then Georgia Ave goes to Florida Ave, and then Florida Ave goes to U Street. You know I'm going to head down and get a lot of population centers, a lot of people. I'm going to probably get ride requests long before I get to U Street. And then my day started at that point. So, but don't pick like the most desert, barren route to get where you want to go. You know, I spoke to somebody yesterday who was very new, and she said, I did $77 on 7 trips. That's a great average, right? Like, that's $10 average fare. I'm honest with you guys, that's actually a pretty good average fare. If you're averaging $10 a trip, that's not bad. It's just not bad. But she did it in 7 hours, and that's the tricky part to me, is that you only got 7 trips in 7 hours. That's maybe the part that I need to dig into a little bit more. And maybe, you know, maybe it's where she was driving. She was kind of out in the desert a little bit, in the suburbs where there's just not a lot of ride requests. Population centers are the key. The more urban, the more downtown you are, the more likelihood you're going to get people. You know, think about buses, think about taxis. Wherever they are is where we should be. You know, that's where the foot traffic commuters are that need some form of method of getting home. And then the other piece to this conversation real quick is that if you're not comfortable driving in traffic or rush hour or the city, somebody said, a customer said this to me the other day. She said, I would go crazy driving in rush hour. And I said, well, I'm in my car for 10, 12 hours a day. Doesn't really matter what I'm doing, I'm driving. You know, so it doesn't change whether I'm driving alone or whether I'm driving with a herd of other cars. I'm still just driving in my car. And you got to process that. You've got to get your brain to a point where you think, oh, it doesn't really matter because I'm making money. I've got a customer in the seat. And ultimately, I'm going to be in this car for X number of hours anyway. So does it really matter? And then the stress or the anxiety of, oh my God, there's all these cars around me, and why aren't we going fast enough? And why doesn't this knucklehead in front of me get in the right lane? You know, all those things kind of minimize. The volume just turns down on them. You still hear them, but you don't hear them at a 10. You hear them at like a 3. They become background noise. And I don't like rush hour because the time portion of our pay rate is the smallest. You know, a 3-mile trip pays me roughly $3, but a 3-minute trip and a 30-minute trip pay me almost the same. Almost. Because it's 6 cents a minute. Or maybe 9 cents a minute. It's not a lot. You know, it's just not a lot. So, you know, 60 minutes makes an hour. You know, it's just not a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of time to really get you a couple bucks in time distant, you know, time elapsed. So to me, that short ride that's 3 miles is far more profitable than the long ride that's the same 3 miles in rush hour, only because I'm really getting basically the same pay. The the time differential, the time pay is not enough to really compensate you for your travel time. Your rush hour sitting in traffic, burning gas, it just isn't enough. Now, it doesn't mean you avoid rush hour, because there's surge typically around rush hour. It doesn't mean you avoid it. It just means be strategic. I don't want a rush hour commute that's, a rush hour trip that's only a mile. I really want the people that are going 3-4 miles, which 3-4 miles in the city is like from one side of the city to the other. I want the people that are going from downtown to the airport, or from downtown to Arlington, or from, God forbid, maybe downtown all the way out into the burbs. That'd be beautiful. I want the trips that are going to not only take me out of the city, and then I can ping pong back into the city. I think that makes more sense for me. It doesn't for everybody, but that's my thought. Now, the only thing I'll warn you guys when you're talking about colleges and schools is city public schools. Some of these kids are trying to be sneaky and use Uber. I caught one yesterday. So if you pull up to an elementary or a middle school, chances are your passenger's a student and they're under 18. If you pull up to a high school, could be either way. If somebody looks like they're 18, they look like a high school, college student to me, I'm going to probably not question that and just roll with it. But, if they look like they watch cartoons still, which I guess is kind of a jaded statement because I watch cartoons. But, if they look like a kid and you're picking them up at a location that is a kid location, elementary, middle school, playground, sporting event, like a little league or whatever, think this through. Because if a kid gets in your car and God forbid something happens and there's not an adult with them, you're in a bad way. So that's kind of my intro video for the day, just to let you guys know how I start my morning by thinking about work and what I think about early in the morning. And then obviously I'll touch base with you guys and probably do a wrap-up video at the end of the night. But this one was interesting. It's a conversation that's come up quite a bit lately with some newer drivers that I talk to. And it's planning is everything. Planning is everything, guys. It really determines how your day goes, how quickly you get into the money and you aren't spinning your wheels. It just makes a big determination. So pick your routes, think about where you're going before you go there. Don't just drive in your car and drive aimlessly. I tried that in the beginning. It sucked. Be strategic about where you're going to start your day. Okay, guys? Everybody have good luck today. It's going to be Friday. The weather's going to be on our side. I think it's going to be an awesome day. I really, really do. Good luck, everyone.